We're here with Marie Pickering, one of the long-term players in the IDSRA for the women's divisions. Marie, I have a few questions for you today, or tonight rather. And the first one is, when was it that you began your time as a player?
I began in 1973. I came to Australia at the end of 1972 and Ian, who later became my husband, introduced me to squash and started playing comp in 1973 at Smith Street Squash Courts, and played then, except for the interruption when I had children, and I think I had one comp off with injury until the beginning of 2006.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you've come up through the ranks over all those years. What's the highest position that you actually attained?
In 1976, I think I went to Division 1, and then sometime after that I went to number 1 Division 1 and played there for up until probably for nearly 20 years or something.
So it only took you 4 years to get to Division 1?
At that stage, mind you, there was Division 5 was when I started, Division 5 was the lowest division in women's. Perhaps later on I had a little bit of coaching from people like Hayden Daly, and the gentleman whose children became really good squash players, Bob Martin. Yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So we went and had a couple of lessons from them. So.
Can you enlighten us on a number of those?
Yeah, I'd love to. Okay, first of all, I think the friendship. Certainly in the early days when you could still go and play squash and have a drink afterwards and not have to worry about the booze bus or whatever it was at the time. We used to, at one stage there was 2 starting times. You had a 6:30 game or an 8:30 game, and I know all of the girls that we played against, we all used to love the 8:30 games. Sometimes you wouldn't get to start until after 9, and because I loved playing last, I often didn't get on the court until after midnight. And then after that we would have suppers with drinks, and we would have contributions from some of the larrikins of the game, like Colleen Ingold and Inika Pasman and Bev Moat, who at different stages used to bring things like a bit of cow dung covered in chocolate coating as supper, or dog biscuits disguised, or a variety of other things that probably are a little bit too crude to mention for tonight. But they were really, really good times, and we formed lots and lots of friendships there. Obviously being in winning teams, although I think it took me an awful long time to be in a winning team, but that didn't seem to matter. I think watching players when, as Albert said earlier, later on we had players like Jeff Hunt and Ken Hisco come down to the district and play down here. That was really enjoyable. And I think my husband and Ian and a very good friend of his, Max Hicks, they actually became their counterparts, so they played competition for years and years and years, and unfortunately Max always was Jeff Hunt and Ian was always Ken Hisco, so Ian was often on the losing end, because I think Jeff might have been a tiny bit better player, so that was good fun. And in the early days as well, we used to go to tournaments around the state and meet lots of the players, so we used to play against people like Karen Clonder, who was really good at the time, and people like Cameron Carr's wife, whose name I've forgotten, but that was really good. One of the other memorable ones was losing 27-love in a grand final to Lyndall Cooper, who through the comp you'd go and you'd play her and you'd have a good run, sort of you get, sort of maybe a couple of points or a game and whatever, and you think, oh yeah, you go along to the grand final, and then she was really serious. She was just so good there, and probably losing to Sandy Gowland in a grand final in the 90s as well. And probably one of the good ones was probably winning a grand final in both men's and women's with Stephen, with my son Stephen, as part of the team. That was really, really nice.
You mentioned that you lost one of the grand finals. Your match was a 27-0 defeat to Lyndall Cooper. Can you remember how your team went that night?
No, I actually don't remember. Though with the 27-love loss, probably the other team probably did win, but I don't really remember. I probably don't remember, sort of how many comps we won over the years. Certainly it was sort of, we enjoyed going and playing and loved to win on the night, but it didn't seem important once it was finished. That was it. It was just a really enjoyable thing to do, and then whoever won, and everybody went on and had a great time afterwards.
So your fondest memories are being a participant in the games that you were playing rather than collecting any trophies?
Oh, definitely, yes, for sure. I hope that's got nothing to do with the fact that I probably haven't got too many. In the 70s, when I was coming up into Division 1, there were people who were really beautifully styled players like Bernice Isaacs, power players like Judy O'Brien, and really consistent players like Karen Manning, Erica Brennan, Ras McCralis, and some of those are certainly here with us tonight. Then we went into the 80s, and Lyndall Cooper was just a standout. She was just superb. Other players in the 80s who were consistent players were people like Letitia Wenham. We went to the 90s, then we had people like Sandy Gowland, who's now back playing again, Faye Moore and Di Ricardo, who were really exceptional players. And then in the 2000s, we have people like Amanda Bates, Melissa Zides, Jodie Evans, Anne Burns, and of course, Sandy coming back now again. I'd also like to mention at this stage as well a couple of players who contributed both as players and as people, and probably as administrators in squash too, who we had a lot to do with over the years and who have now passed on. Bernice Isaacs, Inika Pasman, Yvonne DeWitt, Kate Quine and Kitty Worsley. They have been missed.
Finally, I'd like to ask you, what is it that's kept you in the game for so long?
I think a few things. One was probably friendships. We'd go along and you'd sort of, everybody you met were such nice people. It was really a pleasure to be there. And I think the other thing was it was sort of a way of making sure we kept our serotonin levels up and kept healthy and fit and in a very enjoyable way.
All right, well, thank you very much, Marie. It's been very enlightening, the information you've given us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.